Okay. So for today class, I will explain on the introduction part. Okay. So for this explanation, it will cover on the meaning of research. Okay. So then, why people conduct a research. Okay. So later on, I will explain on the research objectives. Okay. So and also we explain on the hypothesis. Okay. So at the same time, there will be explanations on the dimensional analysis. Okay. So I will discuss on the research novelty. Okay. So I will also touch on a little bit on your master project contents. Okay. So what is the level of the knowledge that they need to address in your master project? Okay. So there will be a comparison between final year project for the undergraduate, master by project, master by research, and the last one is the PhD. Okay. So at least you know the level of the knowledge that you need to include in your master by project, okay, for your master top course level. Okay. So for the part one, okay, what is research? Okay. So some of the slide I will just just explain in very simple explanations, okay, because some parts they already been clear there inside the slide. Okay. Okay. Just to explain what is research is all about. Okay. So I put several cases, okay, to show the full meaning of the research, okay, and what is not considered as research. Okay. So I give the first three cases. Okay. What is research? What is not the research, and the last one will be the what is the meaning of research. Okay. For the first one, Mr. Samad prepared a paper on computer usage in secondary school. Okay, after reviewing literature review on the subject available in his university library and called it a piece of research. Okay, so that is for the first case. Okay, I just highlight the reviewing literature. Okay, okay, because the reviewing literature is considered as a part of research activities. Okay, so then for the case number 2, okay, Encik Ali said that he has researched and completed a document, okay, which give informations about each of his student, okay, their SPN result, their parent income, and distance of their school from their from homes. Okay? So I just highlight the informations. Okay. So because information is considered as data collections. Okay. However, for this case, we also cannot consider as a research. Okay. Although it has what we call as consider a part of a research activity involved. Okay. For this case too. Okay. Then case 3, okay, Mr. Wissel participated in the workshop on curriculum development and prepare what he calls research reports on the curriculum for building technicians. He did his through literature review survey on the subject and by discussing with the participants of the workshops. Okay. So for this example, okay, Mr. Wilson has did what we call as a literature survey, okay, by conducting a survey, okay, to gain an information on the curriculum's background for the technicians, okay, and also he also discussed, okay, with the participants of the workshops, okay, related to these curriculum's developments, okay. Okay, the way that this guy, okay, conduct a literature survey and discuss with the participants, okay, so it's a part of to gain the data and also to gain a data, okay, at the same time, uh, to gain a data, okay, by conducting a survey, okay, and also he did a discussion with the participants, okay. So usually this method we may use when we want to carry out for a qualitative research, okay. So qualitative research is more to uh, study on the satisfactions, on the behavior of the organizations, okay. So need to carry out for the survey or by using a interview or discussion, okay, with the participants, okay. However, by having this kind of survey without uh, conducting for any analysis, okay, and come up with a finding, okay, is also cannot consider by a piece of research, okay. So it involves research activities, okay, but it doesn't show how to solve or to provide the solutions, okay, of the problems. Yes. So case 1, 2, 3, okay, we cannot say it is a full of research, okay, but it still consists of research activities, okay. However, still lack, okay, to consider as a research. Okay. So what is research is all about? Okay. So I give another example. Okay. So because when we carry out for research, okay, we need to have a very clear, okay, uh, what is the problems? Okay. That is the first one. Okay. So from the problems, we will provide a solutions in a very systematic way. Okay. So, okay, the case number 4, okay, a general manager of a car producing company was concerned with the complaints received from the car user and the car they produce have some problems with rattling sound at the dashboard and the rear passenger seats after a few thousand kilometers of driving. Okay. Okay. So the first is um, this general manager, okay, uh, concern, I have received a complaint. Okay. So, so he try, okay, um, to take an actions. Okay, later on I will show you. He try to take an action, okay, based on the complaint he received. Okay, and try to sort it. Okay, by uh, try to sort it. Okay, by um, providing several steps, okay, um, to overcome the problems. Okay, okay. So when we see a problems, okay, so we need to uh, look on the problems, okay, and then try to provide a solutions, okay. Try to provide a solutions, okay. Then at the same time, okay, we should provide, come up with the finding, okay, on how to sort the problems, okay. So what he did, okay, so I highlight six steps, okay, um, how he provide the solutions, okay. So the first one, okay, he obtained information from the company to identify various factors influencing the problems, okay. Okay, and we have a problems, okay, so we need to identify, okay, what is the factor that causing the problems, okay. He then formulated the problems and generated the guesses or hypotheses based on the problems, okay. Uh, he tried to provide the solutions, okay, by having a hypothesis. Okay, what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is uh, theoretical guesses, okay, and usually it involves uh, two minimum parameter. Okay, so for example, okay, if we have a parameter of A, okay, and this parameter is considered as independence, okay, so then we may look what would be the effect of the parameter B, and usually it considered as a dependent parameter, okay. So for example, if A is increased, okay, what will happen to B, okay. Okay. And usually this A and B, okay, are based on the theoretical background, and at the same time it also should be based on the several previous study from other researcher, okay. So that is for the hypothesis, okay. Later on I will discuss several example on the hypothesis, okay. Okay, later on, okay, he construct a checklist and obtain requisite information from a representative sample of car, okay. So once he has received the problems, he formulate the problems, okay. Usually when we want to formulate the problems, okay, we may consider on the previous uh, experience of previous example, okay. Then from there we come up with the hypothesis, okay, based on what the previous study have been made. So we come up with the research methods, okay, or in this case he construct the checklist, okay. So from the research methods that he has implements, okay, so he gain the data, okay, then he analyze the data, okay. So from the data that he's gained, okay, interpret the result, okay, in the light of his hypothesis and his conclusions, okay. Okay, so once we have received the data, okay, so we need to analyze the data and then interpret the result, okay, and it should similar with the hypothesis that we have prepared at the stage, okay. So usually, okay, if the hypothesis is based on the theoretical background, okay, use interpretations of the result will have a similar with the hypothesis, okay. So if it is not similar, okay, it means that during our testing, okay, so we conduct some error or the data is have problems. Okay. So in that case, we need to redo the testing, okay, and make sure that it is simple or and because I refer to previous study results. Okay. So once we have come to the finding, okay, based on the data that we have analyzed, okay, the last one is to we have reached the conclusion. Okay. So what does it mean with this case? Okay. The case 4 is Najla ada ni. Najla. The case 4 is considered as a research, okay, because the researcher went through a sequence of steps which were in order and systematic. Okay, so the researcher does not jump at the conclusions, but use a scientific method of inquiry in reaching at conclusions. Okay, so the the sequence of steps, okay, from the identify the problems, okay, to the conclusions, okay, is considered as a scientific methods of inquiry, okay, when we want to carry out for a research. Okay, okay, that is a simple analogy for a research. Okay, okay, uh, why people conduct a research? Okay, so I just list 5 top answer. Okay, the first one is the curiosity. Okay, many people are naturally curious about the world around them and want to understand how things works. Second is desire to solve problems. Okay, scientists and researchers are often motivated by a desire to solve real world problems, such as finding cures for disease, developing sustainable energy sources, or addressing environmental challenge. Okay, we have the intellectual challenge. Okay, conducting scientific research can be intellectually challenging and stimulating, as it requires critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity. Okay. So usually for those who already have a career, okay, so he want to improve his career, so he further for a higher level education, okay, to advance his career. Okay, and the last one is personal fulfillment. Okay, some individuals are drawn to scientific research because it provides a sense of personal fulfillment and accomplishment as they contribute to the advancement of knowledge and the betterment of the society. Okay, so for us, okay, uh, yeah, we understand that the importance of knowledge, okay, then to usually to for career advancement, okay, so we need to further for our higher educations, okay, so that is why we want to conduct further research, okay. Okay, then I get from several literature review or reference book, okay, the meaning of research, okay. So most of the scholar, okay, most of the scholar, okay, has uh, provide uh, almost a similar meaning, okay, where the research is all about on how we conduct or to solve problems in a systematic process. Okay. So, uh, so we carry out it carefully, thoroughly, okay? So they use the term of systematic process, okay? So research is the systematic process of collecting and analyzing informations, okay? Um, research is the process of finding solutions to a problem after thorough study and analysis of the situation, situational factors, okay? The information provided could be the result of a careful analysis of data gathered first hand or of a data that are already available. Okay, so usually when we carry out for research, okay, uh, some of the data, okay, we obtain, okay, by our own, okay, and there are some situation that we gain the data, okay, where we call as a secondary data. Okay, so for example, okay, when we carry out for when the study involve, for example, weather, rainfall, okay, data, okay, usually we gain it from the government agency, okay. So then we use the data that we gain, okay, from the government agency, okay, to conduct or to carry out for the study, okay. So means that the research may involve data collections, okay. So then from data collections, we carry out for the analysis to come with the finding, okay. Okay, uh, in research, there is a lot of type of different research. Okay? So for the engineering field, especially for the civil engineering or any engineering disciplines, okay, usually we deal with what we call as a applied research. Okay, so I just want to mention there is a lot of type of different research. Okay, so for us, usually we carry out for research related to the applied research. Okay, so we have exploratory or formulative research. Okay, descriptive research. Okay, this is to study on the behavior or characteristic. Okay, diagnostic research. Okay, to determine the frequency. Okay, which something occurs. Okay, so we have a hypothesis testing research, okay, to test a hypothesis of causal relationship between variables. Okay, so then we have practical or theoretical research. Okay, where usually the practical research is to solve the problem of interest, and this problem related to the practical applications. Okay, so the scientific community tend to be more interested in research that push the frontier of knowledge, with the aim of research should be describe, predict, explain, interpret, or demystify or clarify the phenomena. Okay, so that is the research, the objective. Okay, on why people carry out for this several type of research. Okay. So I just put it in schematic diagrams. Okay, so what is research? Problem solving, finding out, application of scientific approach to study problems, control inquiry concerning a certain event or event. Okay, so it may involve a systematic control, empirical, and critical investigation of natural phenomena guided by theory and hypothesis. about the presumed relations among such phenomena. Okay, so systematic. Okay, from the identify the problems to the finding. Okay, control. Okay, usually when we carry out for research, okay, we need to first we need to have control uh, testing. Okay, so what does it mean with control testing? Means that, let's say, if we want to study on something that we can improve, okay, so we should have a control study which is we doesn't include any improvements. Okay, so for example, okay, for my case, I want to study on the improvement, on the way to improve the soft soil conditions. Okay, so then I use what we call as a soil seaming mixing methods. Okay, so in order to start understand what will be the improvements, so I need to test first without put or without treat the soft soil with the soil seaming methods. Okay. The control also can be explained, okay, when we carry out for a study in a very controlled conditions. Okay. So for example, for my case, I carry out a study in a laboratory scale, okay, so with a certain boundary conditions, okay, so without having a problem with the environment's issue, okay. So there is a control can be explained, okay. Empirical, okay, means that our study, okay, should be similar in terms of patterns with the previous study or from the result from the previous researcher. Okay, so it can be different in terms of the magnitudes, but the pattern should be similar. Okay? So critical investigation of natural phenomena guided by theory. Okay, so when we want to carry out for research, okay, we need to understand the theoretical background, okay, and also provide the guesses of hypothesis, okay, about the presumed relation among such phenomena. Okay, so that is the term to describe what is research. Okay, okay. If you have any question, you can interrupt during the session. Okay. Okay. So then I explain on the systematic. Okay, so that is the term to describe the research. Okay. So research is systematic because it follows certain steps. They are logical in order. Okay. So these steps are understanding the nature of problem to be studied and identify the related area of knowledge. Okay. Okay. Reviewing literature to understand on how others have approached to deal with the problems. Okay. Collecting data is an organized and controlled manner so as to arrive at decisions. Okay. Analyzing data appropriate to the problems, drawing conclusion and making generalizations. Okay. So okay, this is a typical uh, type of the procedure. Okay, when we want to carry out for the research. Okay, so it is with for the where we have a chapter one, okay, related to the introductions, okay, when we discuss on the problems uh, that we want to find out the solutions. Okay? So then we go for the chapter 2, okay, where it is related to the literature review sections or chapter. Okay, so on the literature review sections, okay, we may explain uh, on the problems issue. Okay, then uh, we provide the similar example based on the previous study. Okay, then we want to identify what is the limitation on the previous study, and then we provide a new approach, okay, that is not be considered from the previous study. Okay, so in your literature review, okay, at least you need to include several previous study, okay, and each the should be not more than 5 years back. Okay, so for example, now is 2025. So on your reference, okay, you need to have a lot of articles or publications, okay, from the previous study that has been written, okay, uh, from 2020 to 2025. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, there will be a special sessions, okay, from the librarian, okay, on how to use the search engines that subscribed by the UTM. Okay, so we have Scopus, SunDirect. Okay, so you can do a searching, okay, which is related to your um, research topic. Okay, okay. Collecting data. Okay, this is involve the research methodology. Okay, so on how you collect your data, okay, based on the method that you may use during your research. It can be laboratory testing, okay. It can be survey methods. Okay, you can use a numerical analysis or modeling like a software. Okay, so you can carry out for interview sessions. Okay, so that is the way that you may use to collect for the data. Okay? Or you can use full scale testing, okay, that's been carried out, okay, by your team or your uh, colleague, okay, at the site. Okay. Analyzing data, okay, so that will be your chapter 4, okay, which is result and analysis. And the last one is the conclusions. Okay? So usually the conclusion should answer your research objective that you have considered or you have written in your chapter 1. Okay? Okay. So that is the systematic way on how to prepare for the research output, okay, which is your thesis. Okay. Okay, this is the flow chart, okay, to show the research characteristic, as we have discussed before. Okay. So usually when we carry out for research, okay, the smart way, okay, to do the or to conduct the testing, okay, by having a checklist. Okay. So this is an example of the checklist, okay, when we carry out for the research methodology. Okay. So I still remember when I did my laboratory testing, okay, I bring along the checklist, okay, because I doesn't want to I need to make sure that I will not skip for any procedure. So that's why I need to bring the checklist, okay, because to prepare for the sample, okay, it require at least 2 weeks, okay. Then to carry out for testing, it only involve not more than 10 minutes. Okay. So if let's say I skip uh, some of the procedure during the testing, so I will gain an error. So I need to prepare the sample back. Okay. Which is may take another 2 weeks, okay, to prepare for the sample. Okay. So this is an example, okay, to prepare for the introduction part. Okay. So we have title, abstract or summary, background, aims and objective, hypothesis. Okay. Then for the chapter 2, okay, we should have a literature review. Okay. So then this way on how to prepare for each subsections. Okay. Uh, um, okay. Can be used. Okay. For example, okay, the most important thing is on the title. Okay. So is the title clear and unambiguous? Okay. Does it accurately reflect the contents? It is concise. Okay. So that is for the title. Okay. So it may help us, okay, we have include all the important things when we uh, prepare for each subsections. Okay, so this is what we call as a flow chart uh, when we want to conduct for a literature review. Okay, and this also to show you on how to make a search strategy. Okay, starting from the choose a topic, okay, find background informations. Okay, so this can consider a good flow chart. Okay, usually for your research methodology section or chapter, you should come up with a flow chart, okay, to show what is the procedure or step that may involve, okay, in order for you to carry out for the research. Okay. So each of the shape has its own meaning. Okay? For example, the rectangular shape. Sorry. Okay, this shape. Okay. Usually represent the activity. Okay. While this shape require for us to do to make decisions. Okay. For example, if the topic good, if the topic narrow enough, if no, so then we need to repeat, okay, by changing the new topic. If yes, so then we continue to find the material. Okay. So it means that for your flow chart, okay, do not prepare similar like this. See? So it means that it is very straightforward, okay, procedure. Okay. So it is better to be more precise to explain, okay, what is the important step, what is the important parameter, the that you consider in your testing. Okay. So at the same time, okay, you should divide it or you put okay into include your what we call as research objective. Okay, research objective. Okay, so this will be your first research objective. Okay, so then your second research objective. Okay, and the last one is your last third research objective. Usually for um, master program, the minimum two research objectives and not more than three research objectives. Okay, later on, I will discuss with you what is research objective. Okay. Okay. So now we discuss on the scientific methods. However, this is not uh, should not be included in your. Okay, this is only the way that you put your thoughts in uh, conducting the research. Okay? So we have two ways, okay, for the scientific methods, okay. So it called as a inductive and deductive reasoning, okay. So this makes it very useful for explaining and predicting phenomena, okay. The basic assumption of the method is that every effect has a cause, okay. So what is inductive and deductive reasoning? Okay. So inductive is using particular example to reach a general conclusion about something from scientific to from specific to general. Okay. While the deductive using a logic or reason to form a conclusions or opinions about something from general to specific. Okay. So what does it mean from specific to general, from general to specific? Okay. So I use a simple explanations, okay, on this inductive and deductive. Okay. So for the inductive, okay, from a very specific to a general. Okay. So means that the inductive, okay, we may come up with a theory, okay, because the theory may related to a very general perspective. Okay. 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 From the very specific observations, okay, elephant depends on water to exist. Okay. So then, from the first observation, okay, so then we try to generalize it. Okay, all observed animal depends on water to exist. Okay, so based on this general observation, then we come up with the theory all biological life depends on water to exist. Okay, this is very simple explanation on the inductive. Okay. From a very specific observation, then we generalize it. Okay. Meanwhile, for the deductive, okay, we first come up with a very general observation. Okay. Then we try to uh, make an hypothesis based on the existing theory. Then formulate a hypothesis based on the existing theory. All land mammal depends on water to exist. Okay. Then from the hypothesis, we try to test, okay, for a very specific from this specific sample. Okay. Then we study all land mammals to see if they depend on water. Okay, because the first general is all biological life depends on water. Okay. Then come up with the okay. Let's say from the study, not with the hypothesis. Okay. So then we can reject the hypothesis that we made at the first place. Okay. So if it is agree, okay, and support the hypothesis, okay, so then we can accept the testing that we have carried out, okay, during the study. Okay. So as a result, for this example, all land mammal species depends on water. Okay. So then we support the hypothesis. Okay. So usually for the quantitative research, okay, we may use the deductive approach. Okay. While for the qualitative research, okay, so we use the inductive approach. However, okay, there are some situations that we may combine between the inductive and deductive approach. Okay. So for applied research, which is involved quantitative approach, okay, we use the deductive reasoning. Okay. So the advantage of using the deductive reasoning, okay, so we may test, okay, from our hypothesis, okay, either we can reject or we can support the hypothesis. Okay. However, for the inductive, usually the specific approach, okay, the specific observation we come up with a similar general observation, okay, that we made. Okay. So that is the inductive approach. Okay. Okay, inductive reasoning, construction of hypothesis from casual observation and background knowledge. From the examination of this, the researcher established certain expectation, okay, while the deductive reasoning out consequence or implication of hypothesis, followed by testing of the implications and confirmation or rejection of the hypothesis. Okay. So the finding of investigation add a new knowledge to existing structure of knowledge. Further hypotheses are generated from the existing structure, and the casual observation and testing of this may add to the new applicable knowledge. This process continues in this method, therefore research becomes cyclic and dynamic. Okay. So it means that we have a research loops or cycle. Okay. So when we carry out the testing, okay, if the hypothesis that we made at the first place, okay, is not similar with the finding, okay, so then we need to do some adjustment, okay, either on the hypothesis or the methods that we use, okay, until we close the cycle of the problems. Okay. So this is what we call as a research cycle. Okay. So then generation of the hypothesis, okay, then do the observations, okay, existing structure of knowledge, operationally specific testing situations, okay, then look on the implication of the hypothesis. Okay, so if it's answering the hypothesis that we made at the first place, and it is agree, okay, so then we have closed the loop of the research. Okay. If not, so we need to do some adjustments. Okay. Okay. So this is the flow, okay, related to the scientific methods. Okay. So do the observations, okay, ask a well-defined questions. Okay. So some situations, okay, when we prepare for a proposal, okay, so we try to make research questions, okay. Okay. So research question okay, should use okay, why, what, okay, when is not normal to be used, okay. So if I'm not mistaken, we have 5W and 1H. H is how. So we need to use a sum of the 5W and 1H approach to create for the research questions. Okay. So then write a testable hypothesis, okay, make a plan, okay, the detail of the test, okay, which is the methods, research methodology, okay, conduct for the testing, okay, get the data, okay, in this case, evaluate, interpret, and analyze, okay, then come up with the conclusions, okay. If no, the weak explanation, go back and rewrite the hypothesis. Or we need to check, okay, is there any flaw when or during the testing? Okay. So critical thinking, observing all parts before drawing a conclusions, hypothesis, and educated guess about the outcome of an investigation of testable, okay, data, piece of information, critique, identify the problem and successes with an investigations, logical expected to happen, explanation, reason, cause, or an answer. Okay. So when you prepare for your research proposal, okay, so it's better to have research hypothesis sections. Okay. But when you prepare for your thesis, so it's not necessary to have the research hypothesis. Okay, so that is not a common section in the introduction chapter. Okay, so now we look on the research novelty. Okay, usually for the PhD level or master by research, okay, we need to have the research novelty. Okay, however, for master by top course, okay, a little bit more advanced as compared to your final year project for the undergraduate level. Okay. Okay, what does it mean with research novelty? Okay, so research scientific research novelty refer to originality of uniqueness of the research finding or approach in relation to existing body of knowledge in the field. Okay, a novel scientific research study bring a new perspective, idea, or methodology that contributes to advancement and to advancing the understanding of a particular topic or problems. Okay. So it is a original, okay, or uniqueness of the research finding. Okay, so means that you are the only one, okay, that come up with this approach. Okay, So means that nobody has give the same or has come up with the same approach, okay, to get the answer of the problems. Okay. So the novelty of research studies can be read based on the following criteria. Okay, the first one is the originality. Okay, the study should present an original idea, approach or methodology that has not been previously explored or studied in the field. Okay. Okay, I give some simple explanation. Okay. So, for example, in any engineering uh, field, okay, usually we have several type of modeling. Okay. So, for example, under geotechnical modeling, okay, so we have what we call as a physical modeling. Okay, okay, PM, PM. Sorry. Physical modeling. Okay. So, what is the physical modeling? We carry out testing, okay, at the laboratory scale. Okay. So then, number two, okay, we have another advanced methods which is called as a centrifuge modeling. Okay, this centrifuge modeling is a small scale, like a physical modeling, but we use a special device, okay, which is a centrifuge that produce an artificial uh, gravity force to simulate the actual stress level at the site. Okay. So, for example, okay, uh, in the centrifuge scale, okay, we have a column. Okay, we have a column with a size of, for example, 10 centimeter diameter and 50 cent, sorry, 50 10 millimeter diameter and 50 millimeter length. Okay. So then we use the centrifuge, okay, to simulate the size of the sample to 10 meter and 50 meter length. Okay. So we not discuss in detail, but there is type of model that available, okay, when we do the research. Okay. So then third, okay, we have a full scale modeling, so FSM. Okay. Then number four, we have what we call as numerical modeling. Okay, numerical modeling is the use of software. Okay. Okay, number five, okay, we have analytical methods of modeling or theoretical modeling or mathematical modeling. Okay, we use equations, okay, to determine for any parameter or any outputs. Okay, so then we have what we call as empirical modeling. Okay, this is based on several previous study and come up with the relationship, okay, And the last one is called as a constitutive modeling. Okay, so this is more related to the uh, behavior or properties, okay, of the material, for example. Okay, for the PhD level, okay, for example, how to define the originality. Okay, okay. We carry out for a physical modeling. Okay, then we first identify there is no study that's been that are similar with what we have proposed, okay, using the physical modeling, okay, and at the same time we go through all these 7 modeling, and then we find out that also no study has been used or has been proposed similar like what we have proposed. Okay, so that is for the PhD level. Okay, for the master by research, for example, we carry out a literature review. Okay, then we propose a method or approach. Okay, by using a physical modeling. Okay, and there is no study has been made by using the physical modeling. Okay. However, okay, some of the researchers use any other modeling, for example, by using a numerical modeling to carry out for the research. Okay. So means that for master by research, okay, the originality can be considered, okay, based on physical modeling only. Okay, means that if no one has been carried out study by using the physical modeling, but any other study has been used, any other modeling has been used, it is also can consider as a originality. Okay, for PhD, no one has been study using the physical modeling, okay, and at the same time, no one study has been used any approach based on all these 7 modeling, so then we can consider as a originality. Okay. For master by top course, okay. So it is okay, okay, if you repeat the similar step or procedure with the previous study, okay, but you add additional more parameter, okay, in your testing. Okay, for example, from the previous study, they only consider 3 different parameters. Okay, so for your case, okay, you add 2 or 3 more. Okay, so in that case, we still consider it is enough for the master by project because we have a limitation of time. Okay, you only have not more than 6 months for your master project. So you have pre-project and master project. Okay. For final year project, for the undergraduate level, okay, so it is okay to consider, okay, although he repeat the similar number of the study, okay, but he used, for example, a different type of material. Okay. For final year project, undergraduate level, okay, the student only apply what he has learned, okay, from any laboratory testing or any what has learned during the degree programs and then just apply it in his final year project for the undergraduate level. Okay. For master by top course, a little bit advancement compared to final year project, and also the contents or the number of pages for final year project, okay, should more than 60, okay, and usually for master by project, okay, it should be around 80 to 100 pages, okay. That's why I see that it's more little bit advanced compared to final year project, okay. So that is for originality, and then we have a significance, okay. Any study, let's say if you carry out for a small sample population, okay, you need to address what is the important or significant toward the general population's problems, okay. For example, for my case, I carry out by using a small scale testing. However, I do a predictions, okay, by using a numerical modeling to come up with a preliminary design charts that can be used by the practical or any researcher that deal with actual problems. Okay. Contribution to the knowledge, the research should the research study should provide new insight or knowledge that extend or modifies existing theory or concepts in the field. Impact, the research study should have the potential to influence future research or practical application in the field. Okay. Novelty is an important aspect of scientific research as it reflects the creativity and ingenuity of the researcher and contribute to the advancement of knowledge in the field. However, it's important to note that novelty alone is not sufficient to ensure the quality of or significance of the research study, as it must also be rigorously designed, executed, and analyzed to generate relevant and valid result. Okay. Although we have come up with the research novelty, okay, we know that there is no study has been made, but we need to make sure that the study is feasible to be carried out. Okay. Sometimes the problem is not being considered, okay, because there are no methods that are available. Okay. So that is why, although we have identified the research novelty, okay, but we need to consider that this problem is feasible to be solved. Okay. Okay. So that is why when we come up with the research, and when we want to introduce the research novelty, okay, so we need to make sure that this problem is feasible to be solved. Okay. Okay. Then I move to the research start. Before that, I try to aim by 10. Okay. So yeah, you can take a rest by your own, but I try to complete it by 10. Okay. Okay. Research type. Okay. Research can be divided into 5 categories. Okay. We have the basic, pure, fundamental research, exploratory research, applied research, development research, and designs research. What's up? Outside. Ready? Okay. Basic, exploratory, applied, development research, design research. Okay. So as I mentioned, we focus on applied research rather than basic, exploratory, development, and design research. Okay. So refer to original investigation. Okay, for basic, pure, and fundamental research, refer to original investigation for the advancement of scientific knowledge that do not have the specific objective or application to practical problem. Okay, so this is for the fundamental or basic of your research. Okay, it only focus on the original investigation. Usually, uh, this is related to the science stream. Okay, for example, from chemistry, uh, biology, and also from the uh, physics and also from mathematics. Okay, it is research devoted to achieving a fluent knowledge or understanding rather than practical application of the subject under study. It is experimental theoretical work undertaken primarily to acquire new knowledge of the underlying foundation of phenomena and observable facts with or without any particular immediate application or use in view. It is not subject to a time restraint and is open-ended answer. Okay. So the difficulty of this pure fundamental or basic research, okay, uh, yeah, we need to know how long this research can be completed. Okay, because it is an open-ended, okay, um, approach. Okay, usually it will take a longer time to be completed as compared to the applied research. Okay, for example, for the applied research, we carry out the testing. Okay, we control all the parameter, then we get the outputs from the testing, then we analyze the output. Okay, then we provide the answer. Okay, why these patterns has been observed. Okay, so the difference between the fundamental, okay, um, we need to make sure that, okay, what the output from the testing should be similar with what has been written in the theory. Okay, okay, or at least 80% should be same. Okay, if not, we still need to repeat the process. Okay, until we gain the same or almost similar finding. Okay, okay. How could I know this issue? Because my wife did her PhD in chemistry. Okay, so he took a longer time to complete her study. Okay, because he need to design, okay, the similar chemical compositions, okay, with what's been written in the theory. Okay, so that is the challenge, okay, for the fundamental research compared to the applied research. Okay, then we have exploratory research aims to clarify concepts and problems. Okay, so the applied research is to clarify the concepts only in the problems. Okay, so means that we have an idea, the concept, then we want to test the concept. Okay, so we call as a proof of concept approach. It closely aligned to underlying basic research in which there is an objective. It is open-ended, looking for something which might form the basis for successful research project developments. Okay. So what the example for this exploratory research? Research for a new drug is examine the biological effect of a new range of chemical material. Okay. So the researcher uh, try to come up with a new approach. So they have the concept. Okay. Then they try for several small populations. Okay. Then from there, they can come up with the clinical result. Okay. So let's say from the clinical result, they gain a positive answer. Okay. Then later on, they can expose it or use it in the mass. Okay. So that is for the exploratory research. Okay. Then we have applied research. Research directed toward the practical application of knowledge. It involves the application of basic knowledge for the solution of a particular problems, the creation and evaluation of a new concept, okay, and evaluation of a new concept or components, but not development for operational use. Okay. Okay. So it is for a practical application of knowledge. Okay. Means that the study is very common, okay, in any engineering field. Then we want to look on the behavior, on the improvements, okay, but not development for operational use. Okay, um, means that it is a very it is made in a laboratory scale, okay, or in a numerical scale, okay. So once we want to apply it at the full scale, okay, so we need to have what we call as a development research. Okay, means that the study that we carry out in the applied research, okay, for example, we want to produce a product, okay, so then it may involve on the development research because we want to develop a system or tools, okay, so it is directed toward the productions of a useful material, okay, device, system or methods, okay, including designs and development of prototype and process. Okay. Okay. I have two students, okay, that involved in this development research. Okay. He come up with what we call as a predictions of to come up with methods, okay, to monitor for the slope movements. Okay. So he prepared for a prototypes for a slope monitoring. Okay. And then before he can come up with the prototype, he carry out for a laboratory testing to what we call as to establish the relationships, okay, um, between several parameters, okay, so that this method or this equipment can be used to detect for the slope movements. Okay. Then under the development research can be further classified into product development or process development. Okay. So we have product development, refer to research regarding new products and product new to industry or combination of product components in a new way. Okay, so it may involve a product development and also process development. Okay, refer to research into new or improved method of control or control systems and changes of improvement in manufacturing or processes technologies. Okay, so in development research, okay, they will usually we can classify into two type of research developments. Okay? So then we have the last one is design research. Research directed at cost or performance improvement to existing products, process of systems, recombinations, modification, testing of a system using existing knowledge or opening new market for existing products. Okay, so this is more related to parts and component research in order to increase the performance or the cost of any system. For example, okay, in car production, okay, they improvise the component or the parts, okay, where the parts or this component can improve the performance of the car. Okay, so that is for under the designs research. Okay, so then I put in the table form, okay, to explain on any any type of research, okay, where we have a nature of problems, okay, nature of data or informations, okay, past research, okay, there will be a present research, okay. Then we have here quantitative and qualitative research. Okay. The difference between qualitative and quantitative. The quantitative to study relationship, cause and effect. Okay. So any output related to stress, stress, pressure, okay, deformations or uh, changes of the material, okay, which is related to strain or length, okay, in millimeter or in meter, okay. So that is considered as a quantitative, okay. For qualitative, to examine a phenomena it as it is in rich detail, okay. Uh, we want to study on the behavior, okay, want to study on uh, satisfactions of the procedure, okay. Later on I will discuss between the qualitative and quantitative data collections, okay. So designs developed prior to the study, if flexible, evolve during the study. So means that for the quantitative, okay, it involve a parameter. So then during the study, okay, before we carry out for the testing, so we have identified what is the important, what is the parameter related to the study. Okay. However, for qualitative, okay, because it involves, for example, a questionnaire or interview, okay, so we cannot predict what is the best instrument to be used, okay, means that we need to have a flexible approach, okay. Then in terms of approach, okay, we use the deductive approach to test the theory, okay, while for the qualitative, we may use the inductive or may generate theory. Okay? So the deductive, we test the hypothesis, while for the inductive, we generate the theory. Tools use pre-selected instruments, okay, for the quantitative, Okay. For example, we want to get the stress deformations. Okay. So then we need to use a special device or equipment. For example, uh, load cell, okay, to get the stress deformation. We use, for example, uh, dial gauge, okay, or LVDT, okay. While for the qualitative, the researcher is the primary data collection tool. Okay, means that the researcher uh, is uh, the one, okay, that conduct for the testing. Okay, for example, for the interview session, okay, the researcher need to uh, interview for the audience or the participants. Okay. Sample, okay, use a large sample to represent the populations. Okay. Then for qualitative, okay, use small samples. Okay, is that to represent for the large populations. Okay, so then there are some equation that we need to use. Okay, for example, how many sample or participants required to represent for the whole population of the participants. Okay, so it means that it can represent, for example, 5%. So it is enough. Okay, so then we will not do the survey or participate for the whole population, but only for several percentage of the participants. Okay, so analysis, when we deal with quantitative approach or research, okay, so then we need to carry out the analysis by using any statistical methods or tools. Okay, or now we have as AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, so then we can use the AI, okay, to what we call as to uh, get or analyze the data. Okay. For qualitative, they use a narrative descriptions and interpretations. Okay, because usually for qualitative, okay, based on the interview, usually it is an open-ended question. Okay, so then we may get several different answer. Then what should we do? We need to group it, okay, based on teams. Okay, means that we have team A, team B, team C. So that is how we use the narrative descriptions and interpretation approach. Okay, so from there we can make conclusions. Okay, so what is the team involved? Okay, for this qualitative study. Okay, so this is comparison between fundamental and applied research. Okay. Then there are several explanations between descriptive and analytical research. Okay. Descriptive research is a fact-finding investigation which aim at describing the case of individual situations or group, describing the state of affair as it exists at present. Okay. So descriptive is more to study on the behavior, okay, or characteristic. Analytical research is primarily concerned with testing hypotheses and specifying interpreting relationship by analyzing the fact or information already available. Okay. So descriptive is more to study on the behavior, okay, while analytic is more to study based on the fact. Okay, apply and fundamental. Okay, find solution of real problems. Okay, are taken for the sake of knowledge without any intention to apply it in practice. Okay, quantitative and qualitative. Okay, quantitative, measuring the quantity. Okay, qualitative, aim at finding out the quality. Okay, conceptual and empirical. Okay, conceptual, uh, to develop new concept. Okay, while empirical is data-based research which depends on experience observations alone. Okay, okay, empirical research. Okay, uh, from the previous study. Okay, so usually there are relationship has been established. Okay, so then um, we just want to verify or validate, okay, the previous relationship. Then we carry out for our own approach, then try to put our result in the pattern that has been established by the previous researcher. Okay, for example, okay, from the previous study. Okay, sorry. Okay, let's say, okay, we call as A, B. Okay, so then this is the relationships from several data from the previous study. Okay, so then let's say this is a relationship from first researcher. Okay, then another, sorry, and another researcher has carried out a study. Okay, and have this kind of pattern, and the third researcher also come up with another patterns. Okay? So we have a several data from our testing. Okay, we will not able to come up with a relationship because we are very limited of data. Okay, so then what should we do? We just plot where is our data. Okay, located compared to the other researcher. Okay, so from the data that we have tabulated in this diagram, okay, so then we found out that the relationship number 3, okay, it is close to the data that we gain. Okay, so then we can make a conclusion. The relationship of number 3 is more practical, okay, uh, as compared to the other approach. Okay, and it is suitable to be used in our site conditions. Okay, and the other two finding is not um, show good or good or good agreements, okay, as compared to the approach by the third researcher. Okay, so that is how that we can uh, make a comparison, okay, based on the previous empirical research. Okay, so actually the approach that I share with you, okay, has been used by my previous uh, master project student, okay, with a very limited data, okay, it is impossible to come up with the relationship, okay, then he do a literature review, then find out several relationship that's been established before, okay, then he put his data on all the previous relationship, then make conclusions that, for example, the relationship from the third research give uh, predictions. Okay, so that is the empirical research. Okay. So then we have another type of research: on-time research, longitudinal research, diagnostic research, experimental research, exploratory research, historical research. Okay, so that is the type of research that are very common uh, used by um, all the researcher in the world. Okay, okay. Okay, now we move to the research objective. Okay, so in our introduction sections, okay, okay, beside that we have what we call as a research problems or research statement. So later on, we explain on the research problems. Okay. If I'm not able to complete in tonight or this evening, okay, so I will try to have what we call a recording version and share with you. Okay. So we should have a research objective. Okay. So research, what is research objective? Research objective are the specific component of the research problem that you will be working to answer or complete in order to answer the overall research problems. Okay, you have a research problems. Okay, then to answer the research problem, you should have a research aim. Okay, okay. For example, uh, the problem of for my PhD problems, from my PhD program. Okay, um, there is still lack of study has been carried out on uh, soil semen column for a plotting type of columns. Okay. Okay. In geotechnical foundations or ground improvement. Okay. For example, this is uh, soil layer. Okay. Then we want to improve the soil. So we may install a pile, for example. Okay? So this is called as an end bearing type. Okay? There is a lot of studies being carried out by previous researchers on the end bearing, where the end of the column touch the hard layer. Okay? But very limited study has been looked on the floating type, okay? Where the column doesn't touch the hard layer. Okay? So that is my research problems. Okay? So then to solve the problems, okay, I should have a research aim. Okay, so my research aim, okay, is to study on the behavior of the performance of a floating types, okay, based on what we call as a bearing capacity issue. Okay, so what is bearing capacity issue? That if we apply a load on this column, okay, for example, apply a load on the column, okay, what is the capacity, okay, of the system that can cater the load from the top? Okay, so that is called as a bearing capacity. For example, if we apply 100 kPa on the ground improvement system, is it 100 kPa can be sustained by the system, the ground improvement system? Okay. Okay. Then to to provide then uh, to address the aim, okay, I need to put it in the several research objective. Okay. So for my case, I have 4 research objectives. Okay. Okay. The first one is to determine the bearing capacity, okay, of the untreated and treated type of soil using the deep mixing methods. Okay, that is the first one. Okay, the second one, okay, to investigate what we call as the failure mechanism, okay, for the treated and untreated soft soil conditions. Okay, then I also include to validate the laboratory testing by using a numerical analysis. Okay, and the last one, to develop a preliminary design chart, okay, by using a numerical methods. Okay, so that is for research objective, okay, which is I address based on the research aim. Okay, so the research objective to the questions to be answered through the study, they indicate what we are trying to get from the study or the expected result or outcome of the study. Okay, so means that if I put 4 research objective, okay, I need to design my methodology based on these 4 research objectives. Okay, so what instrument, what equipment that I need to be used, what parameter need to be considered, okay, should be rely on these 4 research objectives. Okay, and also the analysis that I need to be carried out based on the chapter result analysis, okay, should answering these 4 research objectives. Okay, then on the conclusions, I need to focus to answer, okay, either I have completed provide the solution for these 4 research objectives. Okay, so the research objectives is very important, and it may uh, navigate your research methodology, research result analysis, and also your conclusions. Okay. So the objective may be specified in the form or either statement or questions, but usually we uh, include or explain it in statement, okay? Not in questions. Okay. okay, when we prepare it in the statement, okay, so then we need to use what we call as suitable words, okay. For example, to discover, to determine, to establish, okay. So that is the suitable words to be used, okay. And then these suitable words usually related the terms of outputs, okay. Okay, later I will explain, okay. What is the output, the difference between the output terms and difference between the process term. Okay. Okay, when we want to come up with the research objectives, okay, usually we use this SMART abbreviations. Okay? So what is the SMRT? Okay, SMRT. Okay, S is the specific. Okay, which is clearly state what you will do. Okay, so then you need to very focus. Okay, for example, in geotechnical issue for the foundations, we have bearing capacity, okay, and we have settlement analysis, okay. With a very limited time, we cannot cover both settlement and bearing capacity, okay. So for my case, I only investigate the performance based on bearing capacity, okay. Then in my scope and limitation section, I put the limitations where this study not include the settlement issue. Okay, then in the last chapter, under conclusion and recommendation, so under the recommendation, I include or propose for any to study on the settlement issue. Okay. So that is why it's very important to be very specific. Okay. So what happened next for the settlement study? Okay. After I back uh, for good, okay, or I complete my PhD, then one of my previous student has carried out the study based on the settlement issue. Okay. So then she continued the study on the settlement. Then now she already become a lecturer, okay, in UTM. Okay. So that is a specific. And M, manageable, measurable. Okay. So can the outcome be assessed? Okay. So what is the output, okay, from the testing? Okay. It can be stress, it can be loads, it can be deformations, okay, or whatever type of output that you want to gain. Okay. A, attainable, achievable, okay. So it should be realistic with the available resources and time, okay. So that is why for your master project, it is better for you to use your the any data that related to your daily work project. Okay. So for example, you have a field data from your that you do for your in your design or supervision at the site. So it's better for you to use all this data. Okay. So as I mentioned from my previous student, okay, he also did his part-time study. Okay, he worked with Gamuda for the MRT project. Okay, then he use the data from his site. Okay, during his master project, he able to publish a paper. Okay, uh, uh, at a very good journal. Okay. Then he continued his PhD. Okay. Then he has completed his PhD. Okay. Uh, Based on the data that he used. Okay. From his actual work. Okay. Is that he used the available data. Okay. From his the work that he supervised. Okay. At the in his company. Okay, so it's better for you to use any available data, okay, and then you need to get the permission, okay, that you want to use this data for your master project. Okay, so are relevant, align with your research questions. Okay, so that is R, and the last one is the time bound. Okay, so you have a time frame. Okay, so make sure that your research objective uh, is within your time frame. Okay, so you cannot solve the world problems. Okay, so put your time frame, then try to finish it within the time frame. Okay, so then you design your research objective based on your time limitations. Okay, okay. So this is called as a output and process terms. Okay, so what's the difference? Okay, we have output oriented and process oriented. Okay, usually for a quantitative or conclusive research, okay, we use the term of outputs. Okay, for example, to determine, to identify, to evaluate, and to measure. Okay. It is more focused on the result or outcomes. Okay. So it's very objective, where we want to get the output. Okay. While when we use the term of process, okay, so it's more related to emphasize on the process or discovery. So usually for the qualitative or exploratory research, they use the term, for example, to examine, to explore, to investigate, and to understand. Okay? So for those who are using the approach of quantitative, so it is better to use the output terms. Okay? Okay. So the output terms, okay, your research is aiming for clear and measurable finding. Okay? So it is related to quantitative. Your study working with scientific, technical, or policy-oriented study. Okay. You need to show concrete deliverable or results. Okay, for the output terms. Okay. Meanwhile, for the process terms, you are doing qualitative, exploratory, or interpretive research. You are early in the field or topic where little is known. Okay, so that is why they use the exploratory. That's why exploratory research is, we use the process term. You are trying to understand or dive deeper into a phenomenon. Okay, so then means that you still want to get the answer, then you still in a process in getting the answer. Okay, so then the process term is suitable to be used. Okay, okay. I stop until this slide. Okay. Since for next week, there will be another topic uh, from other lecturer. Okay. So we try to make a recording uh, version and then share to you, okay, the recording version. Then you need to make your own self-study. Okay. Okay, with that, I end this class. Okay. Then I will share, okay, what we call as the recording versions from this evening class. Okay, then I will prepare for the another recording version. Okay, for starting from this slide page until end of the slide. Okay, okay. So it's already 10. Okay, thanks for your times. Okay, then for the attendance, I will rely on this from this WebEx screening. Okay. So Assalamualaikum and uh, good evening. Okay. So if you have any problem for your assignments, okay, you can text me. Okay. And I will let you know when will be the deadline. Okay. By tomorrow. When will be the deadline for your assignment submissions? Okay. So
Okay,
salam
doctor, thank
Okay,
you.
doctor. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
doctor.
Thank you, Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Doctor.
Salam, doctor.
Salam.